here is amazing and extremely impressive Genesis GV80. Their attempt to enter the high-level, first-class luxury SUV for the very first time. This is something that almost looks like Bentley or Rolls-Royce, but at a fraction of the price. So how good would the Genesis GV80 would be in comparison to its rivals, and maybe even compared to some of the more expensive SUVs that cost twice or three times as much? Let me walk you through all of the details and the good and not so good things about the GV80. As an automotive engineer, I hope to share with you some interesting insight about the GV80, and I'm going to do this review in a 7-point format, which consists of 3 good things, 3 positive things, 3 not so good things, and 1 unique aspect of this GV80. And you'll have a thorough understanding of the GV80, especially when compared to its competitors, and whether or not Genesis finally have hit the mark with this new SUV. So let me point out the 3 things I really like about the GV80. The first one is kind of obvious, and that is the amazing level of luxury and design inside and out. You can tell just by walking around. Gorgeous exterior design, very bold design that you think might look out of place in a car like this. But you know what? I've gotten so much compliment just driving around in town. So many people have stopped me and asked me what this is, and that they love the design. So the first really positive thing is that if Genesis was trying to make a point in this industry by coming up with amazing design, well, they've done it. People love the exterior, they love the interior, and I really think they've hit the mark in terms of coming up with a design that's unique to Genesis and not so generic looking. But honestly, it really does kind of look like a Bentley or Rolls-Royce. No surprise there because of some amazing designers that they have now at Hyundai and Genesis. So this is a really luxury looking car that cannot be mistaken for anything other than a flagship SUV. And that is especially true about the interior. Not only is the interior loaded with high-tech and expensive and luxury features, it is what I call the first feel. When you walk into the car, what does it feel like? And with the GV80, as soon as you walk in and you sit down and start driving away, it is unlike any other Hyundai or Genesis cars I've driven. Right away, you notice the expensive looking design, the quilted interior seat, and also just a vast amount of wood and aluminum finish all the way through, as well as really top-notch stitching. But it is what I call the first feel that is really important about a car. That is, you walk in, you start up the car, and you drive away, and what does it feel like? Does it feel like an expensive car, or does it feel pretty normal? And from that perspective, Genesis did a really top-notch job, because the minute you walk in, start up the car, and you drive away, you step on the gas and cruise along on both the city street and highway, and you say, wow, this GV80 feels nothing like ordinary luxury SUV. It is opulent, it is top-notch, it is expensive in feel and touch, and everything that you see and everything that you move around in the car is absolutely first class. So the very first point that I absolutely love about this GV80 is the fact it does make you feel like you're driving a $200,000 car, but at a fraction of that cost. Yeah, everything you touch, everything you use in this car is really first class. Not only is it gorgeous interior with what we call the open pore wood. These are all real wood, by the way, much like what you see in the Mercedes product these days. But also the contrast of the aluminum, the soft leather, different combination of color they're using. Wow, the designers really knew how to make this SUV feel very special the minute you walk in. Even the door panels, the fit and finish is absolutely first class. The way the trims all fit together, the stitching along the dash, and the controls, and you can see there's a little aluminum design on all of the buttons and controls here as well, like a high precision aircraft buttons. It's really well done. The minute you walk in, you know this is not anything like what you see out there in the market for this price. This quilted design as well, also very impressive, and lots of room, and the seats are very comfortable. So again, what I like the most about this is not just the look and feel of the interior and exterior, but the entire ambient makes you feel like you're in a very expensive luxury car. So the second thing I really like about this SUV is the overall fit and finish and the build quality. I know that some people are still a little bit concerned about buying a Korean product at this price range. I think some people are still loyal to the European brands like Audi and Mercedes and BMW, and they might wonder, hey, is it okay to spend this much money on a somewhat new brand? But there's nothing to worry about. I can tell both from exterior and interior inspection that the fit and finish is top notch. So you can, kind of figure things out, because I'm a former designer and engineer for different car companies. You can actually try to figure out whether fit and finish is good. And when I usually do this with other brands, you can kind of hear a little bit of rattles or squeaks and things don't fit. But I can tell in this car, everything is absolutely top notch, and it fits like a glove. So the inside is really well done in terms of quality. Let me walk you outside and let you know whether or not the body panels and the paint job is also well done. So right off the bat, I can tell you the paint job, I know this car is a little bit dirty right now, but the paint job is nothing short of phenomenal. I'm pretty picky about the way I evaluate the paint job and the way the body panels comes together, as you know if you see my previous videos. But I want to point out the paint job on this is as good as some of the most expensive cars I've seen. But perhaps even more important than the paint job is the way these panels all come together. And so I look for alignment and integrity of the body panels. That's a really good indication of whether or not the car was built right. So if you look at all of the gaps here, they align just perfectly. And not only that, the gaps are very consistent all the way from top to bottom between all of the panels. Now, is that as good as the best of the best? So let's say compared to Lexus LX, I would say it's almost there. It's 90% as good as a Lexus LX. Maybe not quite there, because I did notice a little bit of a wider gap along here. So you can see a little bit of a dip in paint here. And then this body alignment is not quite perfect. But part of the reason why that's the case is because this unusual design where the hood and the front quarter panel, the actual gap is over here. Usually the hood comes down to this point here, or maybe along here. But in the case of GV80, they have a unique design where the gap starts here, right in the sort of a 1/3 of the way through the hood. So there is a little bit of a gap which is not super consistent, but you can't tell because of the way that they designed the front hood and the front quarter panel. So everything looks good. The paint job is really first class, and that is the second really best thing about this GV80, which is that the fit and finish, the manufacturing quality, and the overall integrity of the body is absolutely first class, and perhaps better than some of the Mercedes and the BMW cars and Audi cars I've seen recently. I've been evaluating those cars as well, and their body integrity and alignment are actually a little bit off these days. I can see bigger gaps and so forth, and just this GV80 is superior to those cars. So great job by Genesis to build something that meets and exceeds the competitors' overall body fit and finish. The third best part about the GV80 is the way it drives. Now this is a 3.5 liter V6 version. There's also a 2.5 liter engine with a turbocharged unit available on the lower entry-level models. But this one, which is the highest model, comes with a 3.5 V6, which is super smooth. And I'll take you for a short drive now and tell you all the good things about the way it drives. Of course, the most important question to ask about the GV80 is how does it actually drive in terms of the engine, the handling, the ride, the transmission shifting, the brakes. And I can tell you right off the bat, I am very, very shocked at the level of performance that this GV80 has been able to achieve. I'm driving over some rough road right now, but first of all, the ride is fantastic. The adaptive suspension is just the right amount of road feel, and it's comfortable and smooth on the highway, but not bumpy, despite having a big 22-inch wheels and tire set. Usually with larger wheel and tires, you get a low profile tires and it can get quite bumpy. But this GV80 has a really amazing ride. And in terms of the engine, it has plenty of power with this V6. The 3.5 liter is naturally aspirated, not turbocharged or supercharged, but 0 to 60 miles per hour, or roughly 0 to 100 in just under 6 seconds. Sure, it's not a sports car category, but more than fast enough. And the power comes on strong, and there's very torquey engine. So if I step on the gas like this, even going up the hill, plenty of power, more than enough. And more importantly, the way that the power and the torque is delivered is extraordinarily smooth. I think Genesis have done an amazing job with this. Also, another very good thing about GV80 is the way the steering feel. My pet peeve with luxury SUVs in this price range or higher, such as Range Rover and Mercedes and BMW, my pet peeve is that all of them has a really loose steering with a very numb steering feel. So yeah, they feel really comfortable and luxurious, but there's absolutely no road feel coming back to your hand. But in this Genesis GV80, the steering has just the right amount of feedback. So when I move my steering left and right like this, the quickness and the accuracy of the steering is very, very good. I think it's actually better than BMW X7, better than Mercedes GLS, and actually better than Lexus LX or GX. And because of the way that somehow the engineers calibrated the steering feel on this car. So when I make a turn like this, it has just the right amount of resistance, what I call the on-center feel. It's not too light, it's not too heavy, the steering, and it has, as you move the steering left and right or go around the corners, just the right amount of road feel. And I know exactly which way the steering and the wheels and tires are pointed. Even when I go over this bumpy road here, as I'm doing right now, the way the shocks and suspension absorbs the bump is first class. Not all SUVs can do it at this level. So more impressive actually than just the interior and exterior design, which is already impressive, is the whole package of the driving feel. The engine, the braking, the transmission shift, the way that the car accelerates, and particularly the way the car feels as you make a turn into tight corners or a mountainous road. It's pretty impressive. You know what? It's actually better than SUVs that cost twice or three times as much. So, you know, it's kind of comparable to Range Rover. I just drove a Range Rover recently along with the BMW X7 and Mercedes GLS, all expensive SUVs. And you know what? I'm an automotive evaluation engineer, so I can tell the differences among all the SUVs, but you'll be hard pressed to find the difference among those expensive ones and this GV80. The overall feel is very close. Of course, I wish that the Genesis might offer a high performance version like with a V8 engine, but perhaps that's coming down the road, and I look forward to perhaps having some kind of a very high level, high performance version. If I have to pick one luxury SUV to own and drive every day, I think this will be it. I would take this over a Range Rover or BMW or Mercedes, because not only is it a good value for the money, but I just really like the way that the designers put everything together. Now let me walk you through 3 things I'm not too crazy about the GV80. The first one is it's something that I'm not sure how they're going to fix this, because it's to do with the design of the interior. Now, I love everything about the design of the interior, as I mentioned, in terms of the fact that it looks luxurious, it's gorgeous inside, and so forth. But functionality is somewhat questionable. So we have this really great looking control system here that has a number of different ways to operate this to manage the menu. But this is awkward. You know, you can touch and write even and navigate this dial here and push and prod and move. You know, it's not a very easy system to move around. And to add insult to injury, this menu system has so many different ways to go through. Yet, even though it's a touch panel, it's too far to actually navigate by touching. So I'm not sure why Genesis didn't just bring this forward, maybe 2 or 3 inches right against this edge where you can reach and actually navigate through, because then it would have been so much easier. But instead, they pushed it back, perhaps for better design or visibility, and so it's almost impossible to reach that far, forcing you to use this dial, which is awkward. So the first thing I find it frustrating is the ergonomic design of the way you have to navigate through. It's just it's not very well done. Everything here is okay. These are all touch panel here, but here is a real dial to move temperature up and down, and these are also buttons, and lots of buttons here on the steering. So those are actually not a problem. And the digital dash and digital instrumentation also very crystal clear. But this, working with this, not the best design. The second point of the GV80, which I'm not too crazy about, is the fact that technology has some bugs in it. I'm talking about the software and the mechanism that works with the software, in a sense that sometimes I'm pushing these buttons. So this is somewhat related to the issue with the infotainment system, but sometimes I'm navigating through and it just wouldn't quite select the right function. I have to push it twice, or sometimes it would pause for a moment. And the technology is a little bit glitchy. I think that's something that can be repaired or fixed or improved over the air, and so perhaps that will get better and better. But from time to time, I find something is not quite right. Even when I'm shifting from reverse to drive in this one, sometimes it's a bit awkward to do that. As well, a few other things like the lane centering technology is overly aggressive, for example, in this GV80. So those are now something that I'm sure can be improved over time, because those are likely software related. But I think the functionality that's related to the software and the software engineering is not quite there yet. So I would say that's the second point I'm not too crazy about. There are some few glitchy things and some bugs in the system, but I think that will all be improved hopefully in the next iteration. The third point about the GV80 that perhaps isn't the strongest point is perhaps not so much about the car, but where this stands in the market. So in terms of what you get, features for feature, the GV80 provides amazing value, and it has so much features and technology that's hard to believe that Genesis packed all that for this very reasonable price. However, when you begin to hit this level of pricing, especially in the top of the line model, you're now competing with cars that provide more performance for a dollar. So let's say you're comparing to something like an Audi SQ7, something like that, which has higher performance numbers, because the GV80 does not come in sort of this high performance sport version, not yet at least. Also, it doesn't come in plug-in hybrid or hybrid. So the third point I'm not too crazy about, again, it's nothing wrong with the car itself, but where it stands in the market. I think other competitors have so many other range of models, including a hybrid or a sporty version, that at this price range, there's too many choices. So Genesis is going to have some trouble convincing loyal buyers who are buying Audi, Mercedes, or BMWs, or even Lexus or Infiniti to jump ship to a brand new brand, a new model that they have no history with. So that's maybe a challenge. And again, not particularly anything wrong with the GV80, just that at this price range, they are competing with brands that offer a lot more choices, and that could be a challenge for Genesis. So in my 7-point review, I covered 3 things I like about the car, 3 things I'm not too crazy about, and now I'm going to talk about one unique aspect of the GV80, and that is, you may not be aware, but Genesis, or its parent company Hyundai, actually hired the chief of the design from Bentley back in 2016. Luke Donkerwalk is the chief designer now for Hyundai and Genesis brand, and he's been overseeing the whole evolution of the design changes for Hyundai and of course for Genesis brand. So I think that's the reason why they've done such a great job with the overall look and feel and the engineering of this Genesis GV80. It just looks really upscale, and all the design details makes this SUV stand out among the many. So one unique aspect of the GV80 is that if people say, hey, it kind of looks like a Bentley, well, because it's intentional. The previous chief designer for Bentley moved over to Genesis and Hyundai and had a huge input in designing this GV80. So for obvious reason, it has a really top-notch design both inside and out. So that's the one unique aspect of the GV80. If someone jokes and tells you, hey, is it really as good as some of the most expensive European cars out there, you say, well, its chief creative designer came from Bentley. So there you have it. 7-point review of the new GV80. Impressive car overall. Please take a look at my previous video where I talk about the self-parking feature, which is also absolutely cool. Thank you so much.